In this class, we will create an ARMY using EC2 Image Builder. We will start by creating an IAM role. We'll add permissions for EC2 Image Builder, which will allow Image Builder to do everything necessary to run the build and test processes on EC2 instances. Next, we'll create an image pipeline, and this is where we'll define all of our configuration options. Next, we'll run our pipeline, and the output will be an ARMY, and we'll notice that Image Builder launches temporary build and test EC2 instances to run the workflows. And finally, once the ARMY has been created, we can view it in the Image Builder console and also from the EC2 console in the MS. So, if you're ready to create an ARMY with Image Builder, let's get to it. Okay, here I am in the IAM dashboard. I'll go to Roles, Create Role, leave it on AWS Service. Select EC2 and hit Next. Here, we need to look for a couple of managed policies. The first one is EC2 Instance Profile for Image Builder. So I'll just search for Image Builder and select it. Now, I need to search for Amazon SSM Managed Instance Score Policy. So I just search for SSM Managed and select it. I press Next. We'll give our row a name like Image Builder EC2 Laboratory. And I'll create the role. So, now that our role is created, we're ready to create our image pipeline. So, I look up here EC2, and I go into EC2 Image Builder. Once I'm in, I hit Create Image Pipeline. We'll give it a name like EC2 Image Lab. Below, in Build Schedule, you can create a schedule to automatically run the pipeline on a schedule that you defined. For this demonstration, we will only create a pipeline manually. That is, it will run when we start it. I press Next. We will create a new recipe. Remember that the image recipe is a document that defines the components that will be applied to our source image. Then, below, we can select the type of image. In this case, it will be an Amazon machine image, but you can also use Image Builder to create Docker images. Down here, we'll give the recipe a name how Recipe Image Lab. We also need to provide a version number using the format that comes out here. So, it will be 1.0.0. If you do not use this version format, you will get an error. Further down in Base Image, I have some options. I can select Managed Images, which would be the ones managed by me. I have AWS Marketplace Images, where I can select AMIS, where I am subscribed. That is, I can select some of those and have them as a base. I can enter the ID of a specific ARMY, and finally, I can import an image. That is, import from a virtual machine to Image Builder and use that converted image as the base image in the recipe. I am going to leave the first option checked, and as a base image, I will select Amazon Linux. In Image Origin, I will leave it in Quick Start Managed by Amazon. And from the list, I choose as name Amazon Linux 2x86. I leave it checked so that it uses the latest version of the operating system available. Further down in Instance Configuration, I will leave it as is. Remember, before creating the new ARMY, Image Builder launches temporary Amazon EC2 instances to create and test the image configuration. The instance configuration adds a layer of control over those instances. Therefore, you can define here the configuration and scripts that will run on that temporary instance, in addition to the components you choose for the image. Then, under Working Directory, this is a temporary workspace that Image Builder uses during build and test workflows. By default, it's just /tmp, but this can change if you choose Windows. For example, it would change C:/. So, we'll stick with the default here. Under Components, this is where we can select the software or scripts that define the custom settings for our image. There are many different build components that you can select. But for our image, I would like to add the latest security updates. So, if we search for Update and select Update Linux, This will update our operating system with the latest security updates. I can also search here for Python and select it. If I want this AMI to also have Apache Tomcat, I search for it here and select it. Then, once you have selected this, below is where we can add our test components. These would be the optional tests that we would like to use to verify our AMI once it's built. And again, there are a few different test components that are provided for Linux. So, I just want to do a simple bootable test. So, I'm going to search simple and select Simple Boot Test Linux. And this will just run a test to make sure that the AMI can boot. So, once I've selected that, I'll scroll down, and this, under Storage Volumes, is where you can add additional EBS volumes for your AMI. I'm going to stick with the default and press Next. Here, I can define the image creation process as such. We can customize it in our own way. That is, we can customize the workflows that run the pipeline to create and test images according to our needs. For now, I will leave it as default so as not to lengthen so much the class and press Next. In Infrastructure Configuration, this is where we can define the infrastructure that Image Builder will use to run the build and test processes. So, we already know that Image Builder launches EC2 instances on your account to customize images and run validation tests. So, if we stick to the defaults, Image Builder will launch rather large EC2 instances, which not only take longer to configure, but will also cost you more money. Therefore, let's create our own infrastructure configuration so that we have control over the type of EC2 instances it will launch. In general, we will give it a name, Infra-EC2 Lab. Select the IAM role we created at the beginning. In AWS Infrastructure, this is where we can select the instance type that EC2 Image Builder will use for build and test instances. I'm going to look for Micro and select the 2 Micro. We can also select an SNS topic to receive notifications and alerts, but I'll skip that here. In VPC, Subnet and Security Groups, we can define which VPC subnet and security groups to attach. But if we leave everything to the defaults, it will only launch them on our default VPC. So I will choose my VPC, public subnet in this case, and demo security group. In troubleshooting settings, I can leave the terminate instance on error option check, which will make Image Builder terminate the instance by default if an error occurs in compilation. We can choose a key pair so that we can connect to that instance that will be launched for testing. For this case, I will not select any because I don't need to connect to that instance. And in logs, I can indicate an Amazon S3 bucket to store the logs of the instances to be launched. I will leave it like this, and with all this, I press Next. And then, under Distribution Settings, this is where you can define for which regions we are going to create the AMI. By default, the AMI will be distributed to the current region. In my case, this one you see here below. So, I'll stick with the default for that and press Next. Now, we can go through all of our settings, and if you are satisfied with everything, we press Create Pipeline, and there we go. Already with this, it should have created everything that we configured without any problems. So, my image pipeline has been created. It's created my recipe, my infrastructure configuration, and also my distribution configuration. I'm going to close all these messages, and there's my pipeline. I go to Selected, Actions, and Execute Pipeline. If I click here above to see details, this is where you can see the status, and it only takes a few minutes to complete the pipeline. While it's running, I look up here for EC2. Open it in another tab. Instances. Refresh. If it doesn't show up right away, we have to wait a few seconds until it shows up. Once it's refreshed, we're going to see here that it's already started the process of launching our build instance. So, this is the EC2 instance that Image Builder is using to build its image. We should also see that a test image is created. So, it will also create another EC2 instance to run that test with a label with a name test instance. Remember that the test is simply to verify the test startup. On the side, under instance type, we see that it is created as a T2 micro, which is what we defined earlier. When all this finishes running and parsing the status checks, in the next few minutes, we should see our Image Builder job complete and start finalizing the test instances. Okay, after a few minutes, we now see that the EC2 instances, both the one used to build the image and the test one, are finished. Now, let's go back to the Image Builder console. I'll refresh my screen. And if everything completes correctly, you should see the available status. And here, on the Output Resources tab, is our AMI that we just created. If we had 2 images, this is where you'll find all the images that you've created with this EC2 Image Builder. You can also see this AMI if you go to EC2. Then on the left, I go into AMI. And here is our AMI. Already with a custom AMI, I can select it and launch instances from it. And this we'll do in the next class.